Your fish finder probably isn't broken. It's aimed at a wall of bubbles. The unit you're about to box up and return most likely works fine, but the little puck bolted to your transom is drowning in churned-up water. That's fault number 1 of 6, quietly killing your sonar. And there's a detail here that should make you angry before we even loosen a bolt. The company that actually builds the sonar element inside your finder isn't the brand printed on the screen. It's a New Hampshire outfit called Airmar. They build the guts for most of the big names on the shelf. So when your buddy swears his brand reads deeper than yours, he's often praising the same core, mounted better. That matters more than anything else I'm about to tell you. It means the screen usually isn't your problem. The mounting is. And mounting is free to fix. Most of the My Fish Finder sucks complaints I read aren't unit failures at all. They're install faults. 6 of them, and they repeat across every brand and every boat ramp in the country. The shop that sold you the upgrade won't mention that. A mounting fix doesn't ring the register. A fresh $500 screen does. And a $6,000 one rings it a whole lot louder. And yes, I know how it sounds to say your expensive electronics are fine, right before I tell you to grab a drill. Stay with me. The drill is the cheap part. And think about the math for a second. A good transom transducer runs you what? $150? Maybe $200. A tube of sealant is under 10. The whole fix, bought fresh, costs less than a season of launch fees. Compare that to swapping a $6,000 unit that was never the problem. This is the rare boat fix that saves you money instead of eating it. So here's the entire video in one breath. 6 faults, counted down worst to first. Then the 10-minute reposition that fixes almost all of them. And the height number the brands bury on the last page of the manual. Fault number 6 is riding too high on the transom. Nearly everybody gets this one wrong on their first mount. You did it because it felt safe. You didn't want the puck dragging, catching weeds, or snapping off on a submerged stump. So you tucked it up high where it looked tidy. At the dock, at idle, it reads beautifully. Then you push the throttle down and the whole screen turns to snow. And the mechanism is simpler than the brands make it sound. Water peels off the bottom of your hull in a smooth sheet. But the moment it clears the transom, that sheet shatters into froth and air. Mount the face up in that froth, and your sonar is trying to read through a curtain of bubbles. Sound travels through water just fine, but it scatters the instant it hits air. So the return comes back to the screen as pure garbage. On the display, you get a fuzzy gray band smeared across the top, and a bottom line that simply vanishes the second you leave idle. The fix feels backwards. You go lower, not higher. The face of the puck should sit right at, or just a hair below, the bottom edge of the hull. That keeps it buried in solid green water even at speed. And here's how you confirm it in 5 minutes on the water. Run the boat up to speed and watch the top of the screen. If a gray haze crawls down over your marks the faster you go, that's aeration. Plain and simple. Drop the puck a little and run it again. Remember those 2 words, solid water. They come back on every fault after this one. That's number 6. And we haven't even started. And if you did this and it's still the unit, I get it. I almost boxed up a perfectly good one myself. Nobody pays me to name a brand. So the Marine Electronics Survival Guide covers transducer cross-compatibility and which brands force upgrades. One wrong unit's a few hundred. This is $20. And today's fix was free. Cure's on screen. Fault number 5 is angle. And it's the sneaky one. It looks absolutely perfect sitting in the driveway. The puck rides on a kick-up bracket. That bracket lets you tilt the face a few degrees nose up or nose down. Get that tilt wrong, and your boat's running attitude finishes the job for you. Most hulls ride slightly bow up once they're on plane. So if you've already tipped the nose of the transducer upward, the beam has a problem. It now fires forward and skyward instead of straight down. The signature is a bottom that reads clean at idle. Then it trails off and fades the faster you push. It looks like the floor is dropping out from under the boat. The brands generally want that face close to parallel with the water at cruising speed. Maybe a whisper of nose down? No more. Most brackets give you a row of adjustment holes or teeth for exactly this. Move it 1 notch at a time. 1 notch is usually a couple of degrees, and a couple of degrees is all you're chasing. And I'll be honest with you, this one's fiddly. It usually takes a test run and a small tweak, not a confident driveway guess. But a 2-degree error is a big deal. It's the difference between marking bait at 30 miles an hour and staring at a dead gray screen. Tell me in the comments if your bottom fades out at speed, because this is almost always the culprit. That's number 5. Fault number 4 is movement, and this one hides until you're already miles from the ramp. That plastic kick-up bracket is a compromise by design. It's built to swing the puck up and out of harm's way when you clip a log, which is genuinely a good thing to have. But a bracket that's allowed to move is a bracket that can flex, buzz, and kick up a fraction at speed. When the face lifts even slightly at 40 miles an hour, it climbs right back into that aerated water, and your bottom lock starts stuttering in and out. The tell is a reading that's rock solid 1 second and completely gone the next. It cuts out with no rhythm you can pin down. People blame the cable, they blame the unit, and plenty of them just buy a whole new finder. But it's often a 5-cent problem. The bracket bolts backed off half a turn, or the ratchet teeth are worn smooth, and the entire assembly is nodding at speed. Snug those bolts, check the teeth, and the stutter usually walks right off the screen. And you can catch this one in the driveway. Grab the puck and try to wiggle it. If there's any play in that bracket at all, the water will find it at speed and multiply it. It should feel like part of the boat, not a loose accessory. That's number 4. And notice what keeps circling back. So pause with me for a second, because a pattern is forming. Too high, wrong angle, loose bracket. 3 separate faults, 1 shared root. Every single one of them ends the same way. The sonar face is sitting in disturbed, bubbly, or moving water, instead of the solid flow it's begging for. 5 of the 6 things wrecking your screen come down to that one idea: clean, solid water under the puck. Lock that in and you basically own this whole video already. But the last 2 faults are sneakier than the first 4, and one of them can't be solved by moving the transducer at all. Fault number 3 isn't about water, it's about electricity, and it fools the most confident installers on the ramp. That thin transducer cable carries a whisper-quiet signal. You ran it, like almost everyone does, straight through the rigging tube alongside everything else. Right next to the bilge pump wire, the VHF cable, the fat power run feeding the console, all of those throw electrical noise. And your transducer cable soaks it up like a straw in a milkshake. On screen, it shows as neat diagonal lines marching across the display. A herringbone weave, or a wall of static that gets uglier the instant you rev the motor. And that last part is the dead giveaway. If the noise changes when you touch the throttle, it's electrical, not sonar. And that single test rules out half the finder problems people post about. Rev it on the trailer and watch the screen. Throttle up, throttle down. If the static breathes with the engine, stop blaming the transducer. The fix is separation. You route the transducer cable away from the power and engine wiring. You cross other wires at a right angle if you absolutely must cross them. And you never coil the leftover cable in a tidy loop next to a power line. I know coiling it looks clean and professional, but it's also a beautifully built antenna. That's number 3. Fault number 2 is the one I warned you about. It's the fault you cannot fix by repositioning the puck outside. Because the puck is inside, plenty of people glue their transducer to the inside of the hull. Then they shoot the signal straight through the fiberglass. No drilling, no drag, no bracket to worry about. And it genuinely can work. But you pay a tax nobody warned you about. The signal has to punch down through solid glass before it ever reaches open water. And every layer of that glass steals a little power. You lose sensitivity, you lose your deepest marks. And you lose water temperature entirely, because the sensor never once touches water. And it gets worse from there. Maybe your hull is cored with foam or balsa. Maybe it hides a single air pocket in the resin. Either way, the signal dies right there at the barrier. Air stops sonar cold, exactly like it did back at fault 6. So a shoot-through mount that reads fine in 20 feet can go stone blind in 80, and the owner swears his unit is weak. It isn't. It's aiming straight through a wall. Now here's the fair version. A solid glass hull, bedded properly in epoxy with no trapped air, can be a decent trade for the clean transom. But on a cord hull or an aluminum boat, it's a dead end, and no upgrade on Earth fixes it. That's number 2. Which brings us to fault number 1. It's the single most common mounting mistake installers point to. And the reason behind it is almost beautiful in how stupid it is. It isn't the transducer, it's what's sitting in front of it. Get down and look at the bottom of your hull ahead of the transom. Notice those raised lines running front to back? Those are the strakes and the lifting rakes molded into the fiberglass. On an aluminum boat, it's the rows of rivets, the ribs, the welded seams. Every one of those is a tiny dam. Water slams into it and tumbles into turbulence. A churning, foaming wake that streams straight back. And it lands exactly where you bolted your transducer. And here's the cruel part. You might have mounted that puck perfectly. Correct height, correct angle, bracket cinched down tight. But you mounted it directly behind a strake. So it's swimming in whitewater the entire time you're on plane. The signature is that same speckled static and lost bottom at speed, which is precisely why people confuse it with the too high fault and never actually solve it. And the fix costs you nothing but a little sweat. You move the transducer sideways, left or right along the transom. You keep going until it sits in a smooth, undisturbed lane of water. Nothing upstream to trip the flow. On most boats, the clean lane is slightly off to one side, clear of the strakes and well clear of the prop wash. If you're not sure where that clean lane is, look for the flat, smooth sections of hull. You want the patches with no strake or rivet line feeding into them. That flat patch is the calm water you're hunting for. It's almost always there. You just have to stop mounting on autopilot and actually look. One boat I helped a guy with went from useless at speed to crisp, sharp bottom detail. That was at 35 miles an hour, and all we did was shift the puck a few inches to the left. Same unit, same afternoon, a few inches of hull. That's the full fault list, worst to first. And every last one of them just hammered the same nail. It was never the screen. So here's the other half, the part you actually clicked for. The point was never to scare you off your electronics or make you feel dumb. It was to stop you from returning a finder that works perfectly, and to hand you the 10-minute reposition instead. 3 moves, and an honest limit on each one, because your hull is not my hull. First move, get the height right. This is the number the brands quietly bury in the fine print. On a fiberglass hull, the bottom of the transducer face wants to sit low, roughly 1/8 of an inch below the bottom edge of your hull. On an aluminum boat, with its rougher, riveted belly, you go lower still, closer to 3/8 of an inch, to duck under the turbulence those rivets kick up. Now the honest caveat, and it's an important one, those are starting points, not commandments. They come straight from the install guides. And your specific hull might want a touch more or a touch less. But the rule underneath the rule never changes. Low enough to stay in solid water at speed. High enough that it isn't hanging down as a snag waiting for a stump. Start at the number, then trust what the screen shows you at speed. The water always wins the argument over the tape measure. Second move, the actual reposition. This is where that 10 minutes comes from. You mark the new spot, you unbolt the puck, and you slide it over. The real work is genuinely quick, maybe 10 minutes of wrenching. But now you've got old screw holes in your transom. And this is exactly where people get lazy and start a slow, invisible leak. You fill those holes with a marine sealant. And the one you want is 3M4200, not 5200. And here's the difference that actually matters. 5200 is permanent. It's practically structural. If you ever want to adjust again, you'll be out there with a heat gun and some very bad language. 4200 seals just as tight against water. But it stays serviceable, so future you can back the screws out without a fight. And here's the honest part the 10-minute crowd conveniently skips. Sealant has to cure. The wrenching is 10 minutes. But the cure is a day or so before you run the boat hard. So it's a 10-minute job wrapped around an overnight wait. And anybody who tells you different is quietly selling you a leak. Drop a comment if you've ever chased a mystery transom leak, because odds are it started right here. Third move, respect your brand's template, because they are absolutely not interchangeable. A Garmin GT52 or GT54 transom puck is one pattern. A Lowrance active imaging puck is another. They ship with different paper templates and slightly different bracket geometry. The active target unit is fussier still. It very often rides on its own separate mount entirely. And the caveat here is dead simple. It will save you an hour of grief. Don't eyeball it. And whatever you do, don't reuse the last brand's old holes. Print or trace the template that came in your box. Tape it flat to the transom. Drill to that brand's marks and nobody else's. The height idea carries across all of them. But the hole pattern does not. Mix them up and you'll be right back to filling holes with that 4200 we just talked about. And one move nobody labels but everybody needs. Test at speed before you trust it. Run the boat up through the range you actually fish, 30-40 miles an hour. Watch the bottom line the whole way. If it holds crisp and solid, you nailed it. If it hazes or drops out, you're an inch or a couple degrees away, not a new unit away. The screen is the only judge that matters out there. And one honest word about that title promise, because this audience checks everything. Doubles your clarity isn't a lab number I measured with instruments. It's what people actually describe when they go from a fouled, aerated signal to clean, solid water flow. The jump from snow to a sharp bottom line looks like night and day on the screen. And the 10 minutes is the wrenching, not the cure. I'd rather tell you that up front than have you catch me on it in the comments later. Because you would. So here's the one thing to carry out of all of this. The gap between a finder that marks fish and one that just shows you snow usually isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in inches. The water under that little puck has to be clean, solid, and still. And almost every complaint you have ever had traces straight back to that one sentence. You don't need the $6,000 unit. You needed the few inches. And the next time somebody at the counter tells you to upgrade, listen for the reason. If it's that your finder can't hold bottom at speed, you now know exactly what to check first. And it costs you nothing. I've got a companion video that puts it on a split screen. The exact same transducer reading pure garbage on the left and clean, sharp bottom on the right. So you can match your own screen to the fault by eye. And if the Airmar thing caught you off guard, brace yourself. A whole shelf of finder brands run one identical sonar chip behind different colored plastic. YouTube thinks you'll like this next video, so click it. And if you made it to the end, subscribe.